Hello everyone, this is Wana. Welcome to my video. I am wearing this hat maybe because I have a really bad hair day, maybe because I really need a haircut and there is a lockdown, or maybe just because it has been delivered this morning and it will help me feel festive and a bit less awkward about this weird period between Christmas and New Year's Eve. And just bear with me, okay? Okay, so the general idea of my readings this year was diversification in more ways. I wanted to read more authors that are not classics, because I was obsessed with reading only classics for the longest time, and I think it was really detrimental, so I wanted to change that. And I just opened myself to books that I just randomly found in bookstores, and it turned out to be a really happy choice. I also wanted to read more political stuff, and I also wanted to read more women writers, which comes really nice together with my master thesis project, which is supposed to be focused on Renaissance or Baroque women artists, and it's not going that well, and I'm out of breath. Whew. And therefore, I will show you the highlights of my readings, even though in the thumbnail I am bragging with all the books I read. And I think that's not bragging. I want to say it's just my way of comforting myself and of making me feel a bit better about what I did this year, because I live in the constant guilt of feeling like I'm not doing anything, like not just not doing enough. I feel like I'm not doing anything all day. So I think it was a really nice exercise for me to browse my bookshelves around the house and see that actually I didn't do that bad. So it was a really healthy retrospective kind of activity for me. So I will start with my art historical books. Representing Women by Linda Nochlin, who's the most famous and just founding mother of feminist art history. And this book on Artemisia Gentileschi and early modern feminist thought in Europe. And I think these books, even though this one is not focused on Renaissance or early modern, these books are really empowering because they make me feel like writing on women artists is a form of activism, which also makes me feel like I'm contributing in a way to, I don't know, alleviating the really bad sides of this world in which women painters, women artists have not been given justice, and these women are doing an excellent job. I highly recommend this book because it's written like a novel. It's a popular book, and it's both a monograph of Artemisia, a biography of Artemisia, who's the most famous female painter of all time, I guess, or at least the Baroque, let's say. She's the female counterpart of Michelangelo. It's also a really compelling account of feminism in 16th and 17th century. So yeah, I think it's nice to also try to focus on women art historians, not just women writers. And I'm doing that on one side. So among my political readings, there are novels and there are memoirs, if that's what they are. So I will start with Carson McCullers. She is one of the authors I just picked from the bookstore. I actually got this one from the Shakespeare's Company bookstore in Paris in February. Seems like a really long time ago. So I got it because I liked how she looked. I really shocked by the cover or by the name, and I also really like the name. And it turned out to be a really good book, It's a short story book. I highly recommend this one. And this one, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. Yeah, this is a novel. And in a way, they are political because they are intimate accounts of people from Georgia, from the deep American South. I think just like James Baldwin, they are kind of doing the politics of the soul of people that are oppressed either by poverty, either by racism, either by both, especially in the case of James Baldwin, but also in the case of some characters of Carson McCullers. She doesn't just write white characters, she writes human characters that feel like people you actually met, people that also affected your life in a way. Both James Baldwin and Carson McCullers really linger on you for days after having finished the books. Oh, and also James Baldwin. I really like that modern Penguin editions, put the pictures of the authors. I wanted to read something of James Baldwin because I watched the documentary I'm Not Your Negro, which I highly recommend. I think it should be obligatory for every person on this planet. This book is the debut novel of James Baldwin, and like I think all his books it's autobiographical, even though not overly. He changes names, and it's the story of how he didn't get along with his father, who was a religious fanatic that beat his family to pieces. Both authors are a bit difficult to read in English for a non-native speaker, but also I think for other kinds of English speakers, because Carson McCullers, also James Baldwin, write in dialect because they're very specific about their geography and about their portrayals of specific areas and demographics. So don't get discouraged if you think they might be a bit heavy to read. Go on after 50 pages, it gets much easier. Another really good political novel I highly recommend is Snow by Orhan Pamuk, a Turkish writer, who was in fact one of my favorite writers. He wrote a lot, and I think he is really preoccupied with the theme of the clash of the East and the West. That is just a conceptual creation that gets in the way. And through several of his books, he shows how so-called clash gets in the way of people's lives. And this is his only overtly political novel. He said that. And it tells the story of a Turkish poet that lived in Germany and who goes to Kars, which is a city in eastern Anatolia next to the Syrian border, a rather forgotten city, especially by people that only heard of Istanbul, like abroad, outside of Turkey. It's a really good way of understanding why the oversimplification of the other is a very detrimental act, call it like that. I think this book shows how much misunderstanding there is from the Muslim side to the Western side, and from the Western side to the Muslim side. And it shows how the prejudices of both sides end up projecting a non-existent other. What we project on Muslim people, it's fiction based on prejudices, and what they project on Western people is just the same. And this book reads like a detective story. It's extremely immersive, and well, I absolutely recommend it. It's not just about Turkey, it's not about Kars, it's not about this poet, it's about how affected we all are by our prejudices towards the other. And it's a really good lesson. This book is a moral lesson that we all need to be taught. Okay, and in the same vein, I think I'm only practically reviewing political books Ryszard Kapuscinski is a Polish. I'm really sorry, Polish people, if I'm pronouncing this badly, but there are probably no Polish people who are watching, so yeah. Ryszard Kapuscinski is a wartime correspondent and journalist from the 20th century who participated in more than 30 revolutions that brought to life a lot of modern day countries. This book consists of stories about different adventures that he had on the African continent throughout 30 years. And this book is an account of the 1979 Iranian Revolution that brought about the Islamic State. I don't really recommend this one. I think it's more shallow. I think he should have done a better job. But I do recommend this one specifically because he was not a white man writing these stories. He was a man who was a stranger to Europe because he lived more abroad than he did in Europe, even though he has some books on European affairs too, like on Yugoslavia, on Poland or Russia. So he didn't only live in the Middle East or Africa or Latin America, but also in Europe. But he doesn't have a white man stance on this book, and I think this is why it's such a precious account of a lot of events that would otherwise be rather inconspicuous to people that are not specialists in African politics or, I don't know, Iranian politics. So absolutely look for Ryszard Kapuscinski. You can also watch a really nice animation/documentary which is called Another Day of Life, based on his book with the exact same title. It tells the story of how Angola came to life and how Kapuscinski was directly involved in that through his reporting. So if you want war memoirs, if you want memoirs, if you want to learn about places you've never even heard of, try Ryszard Kapuscinski. Yeah, I think that was all. It's dark. I think you can't see shit in my video because I took too much time filming and because light in Netherlands is scarce, to call it the least. It feels like it's 7 p.m. in April the whole day, and I failed to use the light I had earlier, and that's it. Okay, thanks for watching, thanks for coming. Maybe subscribe, maybe like, maybe comment, because that would really help me. And I hope I didn't scare you off with my ridiculous hat. I hope I didn't bore you to death. Oh, I made a rhyme. And see you next year. Bye!